The story of Alex Johnson isn't about a horrible ending. It's about a man who accidentally changed professional sports forever. While his career was marked by conflict and misunderstanding, his legacy became something far more important than any batting title could ever be. Alexander Johnson was born on December 7th, 1942 in Helena, Arkansas, but grew up in Detroit, Michigan. From the start, his athletic gifts were obvious. He played sandlot baseball with future major leaguers Bill Freehan and Willie Horton. His natural ability was so impressive that he earned a football scholarship to Michigan State University. But Alex chose baseball instead, believing he could advance faster in that sport. His decision proved smart. The Philadelphia Phillies signed him in 1961, and he quickly moved up through the minor leagues. In 1962, he won a batting title in the Class D Florida State League with a 313 average. The next year, he earned the league MVP award with a 3.9 average, 35 home runs, and 128 RBIs. By July 1964, at just 21 years old, he was playing in the major leagues, hitting 303 in his first season. Alex was the kind of player teams dreamed of having. He was a line drive hitter with incredible bat speed and a powerful throwing arm. His talent was so valued that he became the key piece in a major trade for two established All-Stars, Bill White and Dick Groat. This trade showed just how much baseball people believed in his ability. But even with all this success, problems were starting to show. His teammates in Philadelphia jokingly called him Iron Hands because of his defensive struggles. After a solid 294 season in 1965, the Phillies traded him to the St. Louis Cardinals. The Cardinals' batting coach, Dick Seisler, quickly became frustrated with Alex, saying he was at the end of his rope because Johnson showed no interest, even at clubhouse meetings. This pattern would repeat throughout his career. Teams wanted his talent, but struggled with his behavior. What they didn't understand was that Alex was fighting battles they couldn't see. If you're finding this story interesting and want to hear more about athletes who overcame challenges, make sure to subscribe and let me know in the comments what other players' stories you'd like to hear about. The one bright spot came with the Cincinnati Reds from 1968 to 1969. Manager Dave Bristol took a different approach. Instead of trying to change Alex, he simply left him alone. Under this laissez-faire style, Alex flourished. He was named Comeback Player of the Year in 1968 after hitting .312, then followed up with a 315 average and a career-high 17 home runs in 1969. This period proved that Alex could succeed when managed with understanding rather than force. But the peace didn't last. In 1970, Alex was traded to the California Angels. Ironically, this would be both the best and worst chapter of his career. He had his greatest individual success in 1970, winning the American League batting title on the final day of the season, beating Carl Yastrzemski by just 0.003 percentage points. Despite this amazing achievement, controversy followed. Alex was repeatedly fined for loafing and not running out ground balls. The situation got worse in 1971. Manager Lefty Phillips benched him 5 times and fined him 29 times for what they called indifferent play. Each punishment seemed to make things worse, creating a cycle where Alex became more withdrawn and the team responded with more discipline. The tension went beyond the field. Alex developed an angry relationship with the Southern California media. He yelled at reporters, physically tried to remove a writer from the clubhouse, and even poured coffee grounds into a reporter's typewriter. These weren't the actions of someone being difficult for no reason. They were signs of a man in serious emotional distress. Things reached a breaking point with a bizarre incident involving his teammate Chico Ruiz. Alex claimed that Ruiz had pointed a gun at him in the clubhouse, something Ruiz denied. The Angels front office reportedly tried to cover up this incident, showing how poorly they were handling the situation. To understand Alex's struggles, we need to look at the bigger picture. In June 1971, after another on-field incident, Alex made a powerful statement that revealed the depth of his pain. He said, "Hell yes, I'm bitter. I've been bitter ever since I learned I was black. The society into which I was born and in which I grew up and in which I play ball today is anti-black. My attitude is nothing more than a reaction to their attitude." This wasn't just an emotional outburst. It was Alex explaining that his behavior was often a response to the racism he faced. Many people saw him as angry and unpleasant, and his perceived failures were often linked to his race. This only made his emotional distress worse. The hostile environment he faced would naturally fuel what psychiatrists would later call a paranoia-like psychological condition. On June 26, 1971, Angels general manager Dick Walsh suspended Alex indefinitely for not using his best efforts. This decision would change baseball history. Marvin Miller, the executive director of the Major League Baseball Players Association, immediately filed a grievance on Alex's behalf. At first, the union's argument was simple procedural issue, claiming the team hadn't properly explained the suspension. But Miller quickly realized there was a much bigger issue at stake. He changed the union's argument, suggesting that Alex was suffering from an emotional disability and should be placed on the disabled list rather than suspended. This was revolutionary thinking for 1971. The union was arguing that mental and emotional struggles were legitimate medical conditions that deserved the same protections as physical injuries. It was a completely new way of thinking about player welfare. The arbitration hearing was presided over by Robert G. Gill, and the decision was historic. Two psychiatrists testified about Alex's condition. Most importantly, the psychiatrist who examined Alex at the Angels' own request concluded that he was an emotionally sick man, suffering from a paranoia-like psychological condition. The hearing itself was groundbreaking. For the first time in professional sports history, medical experts were testifying that behavioral issues could stem from legitimate mental health conditions rather than character flaws. The psychiatrist's testimony was detailed and compelling, explaining how Alex's reactions were consistent with someone experiencing severe psychological distress in a hostile environment. What made this case even more significant was the timing. This was 1971, an era when mental health was rarely discussed openly, especially in the masculine world of professional sports. The idea that a tough athlete could suffer from emotional problems was almost revolutionary. The arbitrator had to weigh traditional thinking about player discipline against emerging understanding of psychological wellness. The arbitrator ruled in Alex's favor. He determined that Alex wasn't feigning illness and that the Angels should have placed him on the disabled list instead of suspending him without pay. Alex was awarded $29,970 in back pay, minus the fines he had accumulated. But the real victory was much bigger than the money. The ruling revealed that the Angels' own club doctor had known about Alex's emotional state, but never told the front office. This showed that baseball's organizational structure wasn't equipped to handle mental health issues. More importantly, the ruling legally established that emotional disturbances were just as significant as physical ailments. It forced a new, more humane model on the league and created a foundational legal precedent that would forever change how players and management related to each other. After his reinstatement, Alex never played for the California Angels again. The emotional and professional damage was too great to repair. He was traded to the Cleveland Indians in 1972 and spent the rest of his career moving between teams including the Texas Rangers, New York Yankees, and finally his hometown Detroit Tigers. The statistics tell the story of what the controversy cost him. His performance, measured by on-base plus slugging percentage, dropped significantly after 1971. With the Phillies and Reds in his prime years, he posted solid numbers with averages around 3-13. But after the Angels controversy, his performance with Cleveland in 1972 fell to 259, and he never fully recovered those peak numbers again. Alex himself later reflected on this period, saying, "I lost all my enthusiasm for the game. I never got the enthusiasm back." This wasn't just about baseball skills declining with age. It was about the emotional toll of fighting a system that didn't understand mental health. The institutional failure to properly handle his situation had permanent consequences. Alex couldn't simply shake off his emotional struggles. The damage to his passion and professional effectiveness was lasting. What makes this even more tragic is that his brief success with Cincinnati showed what could have been possible with proper support and understanding from the beginning. After a final season in the Mexican League in 1977, Alex retired from baseball for good. He returned to Detroit to take over his father's truck repair and leasing company. This move away from the public eye wasn't a failure. It was a deliberate choice to find peace away from a world that had never truly understood him. In his private life, Alex found what he had always wanted: a nice, normal life. Those who knew him said he seemed to find some peace. His withdrawal from baseball was ultimately successful because it allowed him to escape the conflict and misunderstanding that had defined his professional career. Alex Johnson passed away on February 28, 2015, in his hometown of Detroit at the age of 72. He died from complications of prostate cancer. His death marked the end of a life defined by extraordinary talent and profound internal struggle. But his legacy extends far beyond his career statistics. Alex Johnson was more than a gifted hitter or a difficult personality. He was an accidental pioneer whose struggles forced a fundamental shift in how professional sports understood player welfare. His landmark grievance case established that mental and emotional distress were legitimate medical conditions deserving of protection. The ruling created a legal and ethical framework that laid the groundwork for the modern understanding of athlete mental health. In a system that was poorly equipped to help him, Alex's personal struggles became a catalyst for change. His case proved that a player's behavior wasn't always a moral failure, but could be a symptom of a condition requiring medical treatment and professional support. While the conflict may have derailed his individual career, his impact on labor relations and the understanding of mental health in sports is immeasurable. Alex Johnson's story shows us that talent alone isn't enough to navigate a complex professional world, and that true progress often begins with the uncomfortable questions posed by those who don't fit the expected mold. Today, when we see athletes speaking openly about mental health, when we see teams employing mental health professionals, and when we see the sports world taking psychological well-being seriously, we're seeing the legacy of Alex Johnson's struggle. He didn't choose to be a pioneer, but his courage in fighting for his rights created a better future for every athlete who came after him. What do you think about Alex Johnson's impact on modern sports? Leave a comment sharing your thoughts on how his story changed the game, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories about the athletes who shaped sports history in ways that went far beyond their playing careers.